There is a sound at Monza that exists nowhere else on Earth. It's not just the scream of engines hitting 200 miles per hour, it's the sound of 100,000 people breathing as one, praying as one, demanding victory as one. It's the sound of history. And in 2019, it was the sound of a kingdom about to be broken. The Italian Grand Prix. That year wasn't just a race, it was a reckoning. On the surface, its story is simple and heroic. Charles Leclerc, the 21-year-old prodigy in his first year for Ferrari, holds off a relentless 7-time champion Lewis Hamilton to win at Monza, ending a 9-year drought for the Scuderia at their sacred home circuit. It's a fairy tale. A star is born in a baptism of fire and sound. But beneath the surface of that glorious celebration lies a colder, more complex story. This wasn't just about one driver's heroic victory, it was about the public, brutal dismantling of another. This video will argue that Monza 2019 was the day the torch at Ferrari wasn't passed but seized. It was the day Charles Leclerc didn't just win a race, he broke his 4-time world champion teammate Sebastian Vettel and sealed his fate at the team he loved. To understand how this happened, we won't just look at the final lap, we'll dissect the entire weekend. We'll examine the unforced error from Vettel that left his young teammate completely exposed to the Mercedes attack. We'll break down Leclerc's breathtakingly aggressive and deeply controversial defense against Lewis Hamilton, a defense only made possible by a crucial and often forgotten shift in the FIA's philosophy. And we will pinpoint the single devastating moment on lap 39 that symbolized the final, crushing transfer of power. This is the story of how one race didn't just decide a winner, but crowned a new prince and exiled the old king. This brings us to our claim. The 2019 Italian Grand Prix is widely remembered for Charles Leclerc's heroic victory, but it was something more. This was the day the torch was not passed, but seized. It was the moment Charles Leclerc, in his first year in red, eclipsed a 4-time world champion and asserted himself as the new leader of Scuderia Ferrari, fundamentally altering the team's trajectory and sealing Sebastian Vettel's fate. The story of Leclerc's coronation begins with his teammate's abdication. On lap 8, Sebastian Vettel, running a lonely fourth, made a simple, unforced error. He lost the rear of his Ferrari through the fast Ascari chicane and spun onto the grass. On its own, it was a costly mistake, but in the context of his season and his career, it was a tremor that signaled a deeper collapse. What happened next was worse. In his haste to rejoin, Vettel pulled back onto the track unsafely, directly into the path of Lance Stroll, earning himself a 10-second stop-and-go penalty, one of the harshest sanctions in the sport. His race was over. More importantly, Ferrari's strategic shield was gone. Leclerc was now alone, a single red car hunted by 2 silver arrows. Vettel's error didn't just ruin his own Sunday, it created the crucible that would define Leclerc's. The race now hinged on a strategic knife edge. Mercedes blinked first, pitting Hamilton on lap 19 for the faster but less durable medium compound tyres. Ferrari had to respond. They brought Leclerc in the very next lap, but fitted the hard tyres. This created a critical disadvantage. For the next 33 laps, Leclerc would have to defend from a faster car on better tyres, a car that was superior in every corner on the circuit. His only defence was the SF90's immense straight-line speed, and he used it like a weapon. Lap 23, Hamilton, with the aid of DRS, gets a massive run on Leclerc into the second chicane, the Roggia. He pulls alongside. Leclerc doesn't yield the corner. He moves right, squeezing Hamilton until the Mercedes has nowhere to go but the grass. It was a breathtakingly aggressive move, a declaration that he would not be bullied. Hamilton came on the radio, furious, claiming, "He didn't leave me a car's width." The stewards looked at it, but Leclerc escaped with only a black and white flag, the equivalent of a final warning. The pressure didn't stop. A few laps later, Leclerc himself made an error, locking his brakes and cutting the first chicane entirely. Again, the stewards investigated. No penalty was given. Leclerc was living on the absolute edge of the rules, and for now, it was working. So why did he get away with it? To understand, we have to rewind. The 2019 season had been plagued by controversial penalties, most notably the one that cost Sebastian Vettel victory in Canada. Fans were frustrated. They wanted to see hard racing. In response, the FIA and its race director, Michael Masi, introduced a new philosophy, unofficially dubbed "Let Them Race." This new approach was first tested in Austria, where Max Verstappen made a forceful move on Leclerc for the win and was not penalised. The message was clear. The drivers would be given more leeway and the stewards would be less interventionist. Leclerc's defence at Monza was the ultimate test of this new doctrine. He pushed Hamilton off the track, an action that in a previous year or even a few months earlier would have almost certainly resulted in a time penalty. But in the context of "Let Them Race," it was deemed hard but just about fair. Leclerc wasn't just winning a race, he was mastering a new philosophy of combat. Then came the moment that crystallised the entire narrative. Lap 39. As Leclerc masterfully managed his defence against the reigning world champion, he came upon a backmarker. That backmarker was the other Ferrari. That backmarker was Sebastian Vettel. Being lapped by your teammate is one of the deepest humiliations for a Formula One driver. For a four-time champion hired to bring glory back to Maranello, to be lapped by his 21-year-old teammate at Monza, while that teammate was on his way to a legendary victory. It was more than just a data point. It was a public and brutal transfer of power. The dream Vettel had chased for 5 years was being realised right in front of him by the kid in the other car. Now, it's important to be balanced. We must acknowledge the elephant in the room, that 2019 Ferrari engine. After the season, an FIA investigation led to a secret settlement and a technical directive that, in 2020, saw Ferrari's straight-line speed vanish. Many believe the engine was not legal and that Leclerc's win was therefore illegitimate. While the truth remains confidential, it's undeniable that the car's power was a decisive factor in holding off the Mercedes. Furthermore, some would argue that Vettel's decline began much earlier, with his infamous crash from the lead at Hockenheim in 2018. They would say Monza was not the cause, but merely a symptom of a crisis of confidence that was already well underway. Perhaps it was just one disastrous day, not the single moment the kingdom was lost. These are valid points, but they don't erase the symbolic power of what happened on track. The consequences of that Sunday were immediate and irreversible. With the points from his victory, Charles Leclerc moved ahead of Sebastian Vettel in the World Drivers' Championship. He would never be behind him again. The dynamic within Ferrari shifted permanently. Before Monza, the team was still structured, officially or not, around its veteran champion. After Monza, all energy and hope began to coalesce around the young Monegasque. For Vettel, the psychological damage was profound. He had failed to win for Ferrari at Monza in 5 attempts. Leclerc did it in his first. It was a blow from which his Ferrari career never truly recovered. The following season, 2020, was a painful epilogue before his departure. The guillotine may have been sharpened at Hockenheim, but it was at Monza that the final, decisive blow fell. Pressure doesn't just reveal character, it forges it. On that September afternoon, under the immense weight of Ferrari's history and a nation's hopes, Charles Leclerc proved he wasn't just a fast driver. He was a ruthless, intelligent, and unflinching fighter. He didn't just win a Grand Prix, he took the crown.